Long-term care for older people does not simply mean nursing home or 24-hour care services. Talking about long-term care for older people means talking about a complicated network of support and services. When we think about how long-term care services should be organized, the individual person, such as Mrs. Long-Term Care, should always be the center of attention. If Mrs. Long-Term Care were to find her health becoming gradually worse, so that she was unable to look after herself, or she were to find herself alone and unable to cope without any additional support, this can often mean that she will need more help from her family, friends, or neighbors. Family and other types of informal care are still one of the most important parts of long-term care. But in Europe, there are many different kinds of services that are routinely involved in helping someone like Mrs. Long-Term Care get back on her feet, cope with the things she may no longer be able to do, and live as independently as possible. First of all, these include various kinds of formal care services in the home and community, such as home and palliative care services, special therapies like rehabilitation, or even practitioners who work in individual practices who can help Mrs. Long-Term Care keep as independent as possible. If she were to get a more serious health problem, which meant that she had to go to hospital, specialized departments and medical services in hospitals have to be in place. There are a range of other types of services that can provide long-term care. These include case and care management centers, which would give Mrs. Long-Term Care and her family any specialized information and care she may need, nursing and residential care homes for short or longer-term care, hospices, transitory care services, which would give her daycare or help her informal carers by giving respite care, or assisted living arrangements such as sheltered or warden-assisted accommodation. But it's important to remember that all these different types of services have their own approaches to management and leadership. And these approaches have a great influence on how willing and able the services are to work together and to make sure that the care Mrs. Long-Term Care gets is properly coordinated. Importantly, how the different professional services measure and demonstrate that their care is of the best quality varies between them, so we never get a true picture of how well they are doing as a whole in meeting Mrs. Long-Term Care's needs. However, from her point of view, different types of treatment, care, and support are usually needed, either one after another or, more likely, at the same time. Let's imagine, for example, that Mrs. Long-Term Care needs support from her family, regular treatment by her GP, as well as services provided in a daycare center, such as occupational therapy. Arranging care for the needs she has now and those that may come in the future means that Mrs. Long-Term Care will go through a number of different pathways and processes. To get the best out of her care and to regain some of her independence, some important things need to be in place. Above all, these pathways and processes must run smoothly. Care should include ways to help Mrs. Long-Term Care prevent ill health in the future, to help her to carry out her daily activities by herself for as long as possible, and to give her every opportunity for rehabilitation. Getting the links and proper coordination between all the services that need to be involved